Welcome to today's lecture on the stress effect and how the roller coaster of stress impacts your health. My name is Andrea Anderson, and I'm with Nutrition Commission. And as a bit of background, I spent about 22 years in corporate America in a lot of progressive roles or progressing roles, leadership positions. And I, of course, like most of us, have experienced firsthand a lot of chronic stress throughout my career, looking back on it now. And I would also add that probably late 30s into early 40s, I also was diagnosed with stage 2B, stage 3 breast cancer while I was 30 weeks pregnant. So having some very impactful traumatic events had forced me, if you will, to kind of reevaluate where I want to go in this next chapter of my life. And that's where I really committed myself into nutrition and wellness to make it a way of life, particularly after having to go through so much of a learning curve myself around my disease, as well as how to make changes that are sustainable even 6.5 years later. So again, I want to welcome you here, and super glad that you have an interest in this topic, because so many women specifically are walking around with signs of estrogen dominance, which certainly we can reverse and prevent. And I think this topic of around stress is a really important factor to our overall wellness. So again, welcome, glad you're here. What I want to do is invite all of you to make sure you have pen and paper or something that you can write with, because we will be doing a little bit of a reflection exercise throughout this video. And I just want to invite you to, relax, drop in, maybe take some deep breaths, and, grab your favorite beverage, tea, coffee, water, and just get comfortable. And this is your time to really learn and take away from it what makes sense, where you are in your journey. And there's no need for perfection or anything like that. It's just, let's be here to learn and share and use it as a jumping off point, if you will, for your own health and wellness, journey, if you will, in 2022. And I should add, I'm not one for New Year's resolutions. So I would encourage you just to be setting your New Year's intentions. Okay. We're not looking for perfection here. We're just looking at one step at a time. All right. So with that said, let's recap what our learning objectives look like for today's session. I want to share with you what chronic stress looks like, just the deeper understanding about it, how it impacts our body. And then, of course, I'm going to leave you with key stress busting techniques that I think could be used in your everyday life. You don't have to do them all, but you'll have a variety to choose from. Okay. So let's start with this. The body inherently needs balance, and it's important that we control our cortisol. And as you're going to learn, cortisol is the stress hormone. Okay. And it's the fight or flight, let's move, let's do something hormone that most of us are pretty much operating on as, our standard every day. This is just how I show up. Right. And I think it's important to really understand the connectivity between our stress and how it shows up in so many of our health symptoms today. And I'm super excited to show you what those are, because it was very eye-opening, even for myself. But I also want to just share this with you, this quote: "After every stressful situation, we become a little older." Now, I don't know about you, but when I look in the mirror and I've gone through a really stressful event, I'm not looking fresh. I'm not looking like I'm at the tip-top shape here in my own health. And I'm sure you can probably relate of what you look like after you've been through something really stressful, whether it be, just a very stressful work environment or family obligations or whatever. It definitely ages us, doesn't it? But if we look a little closer, there's definitely health impacts, of course, of hormonal imbalances, which are due to a variety of reasons. But it's really important to know, well, How are the hormones even produced? Well, we have glands and we have organs that actually are responsible for producing hormones. And hormones really are basically chemical messengers, and they're telling every function of our body kind of what to do. And in its most simplistic measures, you can look at it as hormones have these, let's see, 5 primary functions. They're responsible for our metabolism, so our energy, our stress response, our reproduction, our blood sugar control, and also bone building and resorption. So if you look at the image here on the screen, you can see the endocrine system from the brain, glands again in the brain through to the thyroid, the pancreas, which people are not aware, sometimes that the pancreas is actually emitting not just digestive enzymes, but also hormones, insulin, adrenal glands, which are responsible for producing cortisol. And they sit right on top of our kidneys, basically. And of course, then our reproductive organs. What causes the imbalances? There are many. Again, today we're talking about stress, blood sugar imbalances, infections. If you have an overtaxed liver, which also contributes to the inability of the liver to metabolize or detox used up estrogens. That's a problem in the world of especially estrogen dominance. Fat-free diets, you could have neurotransmitter issues with your brains, what's being sent out as hormonal signals to the body, xenobiotics, which are the good old plastics that mimic hormones and also contribute to estrogen dominance. So there's a variety here, mineral deficiencies as well. But it's really this chronic unresolved stress that prematurely ages every vital organ. And it's just super impactful when you look at it this way. It shrinks our brain. It ages the heart, weakens the bones, makes us sick and fat, leads to diabetes. It's harmful to our gut, and you'll see why in a minute. Suppresses our sleep and suppresses our overall sex drive or libido. So what is stress then? Well, it's the body's way of responding to demands from a variety of sources. They can be both physical or psychogenic, both positive and negative, in order to bring it back to its normal state of balance. Our overall health, good health, really depends on this state of balance or homeostasis in the body. And it's really, stress isn't always a bad thing. There's actually 2 types. You have positive eustress, which is the stress that we get, maybe we're working on, a deadline, or it makes us feel a sense of accomplishment. It's what kind of kicks us into gear when we need to do things that are short-term in nature. The negative distress, though, is that chronic, unresolved stress. It's kind of like that, what now? The other shoe drops. It's just, it never seems to go away. We're in a relentless attack of stress. And I think it's surprising for most of my clients when I show this slide, or help them to really grapple with, there are many different sources of stress or stressors or triggers, right? That can start a chain reaction in our body. And that's normal. It's normal. There are emotional, physical, dietary, and also chemical stressors. And you can kind of look through these lists and maybe find some that resonate with you. I know I certainly did, from aging parents, marital stress, lack of close personal connections. Obviously, the last few years have been very stressful, right? Illness, financial, to the physical. And a lot of people don't really see these ones popping out at them, but they are stressors in the body that still create hormonal and blood sugar imbalances. Viruses, bacterial, fungal, parasites. If you've had surgery, that's a stressor, obviously. To dietary, which of course, like I said, we'll get into that more in next month's video. Skipping meals, to chemicals. And I think this one's even more fascinating because people don't often look at the environmental toxins and the pollutants in the air or the water or the plastics and, really think about it. I know I certainly didn't before I got diagnosed with cancer, but even from the pesticides and the herbicides in our food, right? And so all of these things contribute to stressors in the body. And I think it's an important note that, especially when it comes to hormonal balance or imbalance, our endocrine system is most affected by the chemical toxins, quite frankly. Well, this might give you a little bit of like, oh my gosh, what is Andrea doing to me? But I want you to understand, again, this is about connectivity. Okay. It's not about make sure you understand, all levers and things like that. But I just want you to understand how the connection works. And I know even for my own brain, it's kind of like, I want to see what happens if this happens. What does it mean in my body, to kind of get me to understand root cause a little more? So think about it this way. You have a stressor. Okay. And you get that fight or flight signal between your mind and your body. Okay. And what is it telling us? The brain is sending out a bunch of hormones to, the epinephrine, the endorphins from the brain, and hormones get released from the adrenals in the form of cortisol. Okay. And those hyper amounts are what really get our blood pumping, right? And gets us ready for some sort of defensive mode or attack. And when that happens, it always raises our blood sugar because we need that sugar, that glucose in our blood as a form of immediate energy. It raises our heart rate, it increases our blood pressure to improve the circulation of the muscles, again, getting our body ready to go. And when that's happening, what it's also doing is it's diverting blood from all the your body deems less crucial functions, such as your digestion, your immune function, which is why most of us get really sick after we've been through a lot of stress. We crash with sickness, and your fertility. Okay. So it takes away blood to those, activities and functions and diverts them to the brain, the heart, and the skeletal muscles to prepare you for fight or flight, right? So when it's diverting blood away from just, let's say, digestion, okay, this is very important to understand. When you're diverting the blood away from the process of just digestion, you're seeing a reduction in your nutrient absorption. So let's say you're eating really great foods, but you're always stressed out. You're not going to get the full absorption of that food or that nutrient density that you were intending. It reduces oxygen to the gut. It decreases your metabolism. Okay. Your thyroid is really affected by chronic stress. And you're going to see decreased enzyme production, and enzymes are needed to break down your food throughout the process of digestion. You're going to then see an increase in the excretion of your water soluble vitamins, other minerals, and even some macronutrients as well. So in this whole process, if it's just a one-time event, after the stressor is gone, we end up returning back to our parasympathetic baseline, that, the homeostasis, rather, with the help of the parasympathetic nervous system to just kind of calm us down. But what happens when we have a prolonged state of chronic stress? Okay, this never ends, right? What happens? Okay, again, don't worry about understanding this all. I just want you to see the connectivity. So again, we start at the top left. We have chronic stress, pumping out excess cortisol from our adrenals. It increases the blood sugar. It increases the insulin, because now your pancreas has to start pumping out insulin because it's getting the signal that there's a lot of sugar in the blood, and it's got to take that back to the cell. But as it does that, this excess, the cell already has enough sugar, basically, right? And so it's saying, we don't need any more. Go ahead and take it to the storage reserves. And where is it going to take it? It's going to store it as fat. So you can get the beer belly, you can have the muffin top, and it's important to note this adipose fat is actually metabolically active, meaning that it produces its own toxins and its own inflammation, and it's super unhealthy. Okay. It's not just like the regular fat tissue, that we might have on your leg or whatever, but it's metabolically active. So over time, we're going to see this blood sugar roller coaster. Okay. We might show up like we're really fatigued from work, or maybe we just notice that we're just not really rebounding as well as we used to due to stress. And this is really where the serious health issues begin, because your adrenals at this point have become exhausted, quite frankly, and they can no longer kind of absorb this buffer of stress, right? And eventually you move into the next phase. It's kind of this adrenal fatigue. Maybe some of you are suffering, maybe you've been diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome or adrenal fatigue, but that's really where your adrenals are like, I'm done. Cortisol has been depleted right now, and it starts to show up as some pretty serious health conditions, from chronic inflammation to, brain fog, cravings. You have digestive issues such as low hydrochloric acid, or you might have GERD as a problem, a lot of heartburn. You might have irritable bowel or candida. You could have more serious issues like degenerative illnesses like cancer, diabetes, heart disease, right? Immune suppression, and a lot of these autoimmune disorders also gets caught up in this outcome from this chronic stress in our body, just because, again, we've really taken down the immune function and our digestive function as well. So this is the connectivity, right? If you're chronically stressed, you're chronically raising the blood sugar. And that to me was like, ding, ding, ding. It was so crazy how I didn't know what I didn't know. Okay. So now you know. So we have to find a way to slow ourselves down. So right now, I want you to take out your pen and paper. And you can pause this video, spend the next 3 to 5 minutes. Okay. And I really want you to use this as your time to reflect a little bit. Jot down what some of your sources or triggers of stress have been for yourself. Okay. Maybe just the last year, or, however far back you want to go, but just really drop into that. Spend some time journaling, brain dump all the things that are creating stress and overwhelm in your life at the moment. And then just put a little check mark against those that you believe are in your control. And we'll see you back on the other side. So welcome back, friends. Now let's shift gears a little bit and talk a moment about how you can reduce these stressors in your own life. I'm going to just try to simplify it as best as I can, because again, we don't want to make this overwhelming, but maybe you're going to resonate with one of these ideas. Okay. So these are some of my 7 key stress busters. Number 1, if you can't change it, don't worry about it. Again, easier said than done. I understand, but this is part of that reflective journaling exercise. Number 2, focus on solutions, not problems. Really do what you can to simplify your life. Okay. 3, redirect negative thoughts. So that might look like, and this is really difficult to do, I understand, for most of us, including myself. If I'm getting into the negative circle of thoughts, I will tell myself, or try to anyway, all right, let me take 5. Let me walk away from this a minute, redirect my energy somewhere else so that I can break that thought. Number 4, taking deep breaths, super powerful with reducing stress and getting you back into a parasympathetic state that you need to, right? Just to help bring activity and function back to your other important organs and systems in the body. Or just move, break it up. If you're stressed out, there's nothing better than getting outside for a quick walk, or taking a break, getting away from your computer, getting away from that discussion or maybe that debate that's making you really uncomfortable and stressed out. Take 5. Number 6, surround yourself with upbeat, positive people. Super important, is it not? And finally, getting a good night of sleep. That to me has always been a game changer in my toolbox. So now I want to, again, give yourself some time. Pause the video. Give yourself, 3 to 5 minutes. Let's reflectively write to understand a little deeper which stressors are in my control. So what you marked off in the previous journaling exercise, now take 1 or 2 and really drill down. What one or two things can I now do with these that are in my control? Create some ideas as to what you can use and action into your weekly routine from the ideas that I just gave you. Okay, that's kind of answering your own how and when. And then I'll see you back on the other side. So I'm hoping that just doing some very simple journaling that we just did, very simple, really gave you a moment to really understand how powerful just these little simple practices can be in your everyday life. It doesn't have to be anything big or, woo woo or anything. It's just catching yourself, pausing, and resetting. And so I want to leave you with some of my most, what I would say across my clients, even the most impactful things that they have done that have worked well. 3 of those stress busters in their own daily life. And I know I've done all of these and I still use these as my go-to. Number 1, when I'm stressed and overwhelmed, I turn it off, I reduce the busyness, and I simplify my life. And that might even look like maybe you have an office space that's just clutter bomb, or your kitchen's cluttered, or just things feel congested. It's like purge, clear the deck, get organized, and take the time to do that because it's affecting your mental space, and it's a mental clutter that can make you feel unknowingly very stressed out. How about action 2? Incorporate a nighttime routine that helps you to unwind. Maybe that's, turning off your electrical devices, turning off your cell phone, making a cup of tea, maybe doing some deep breathing, getting into bed with a book, whatever it may be, but make it a commitment to yourself to just shut down and help yourself unwind and drop into that parasympathetic state that we need, right? Especially before we go to bed. And action 3, pause for deep breathing throughout the day. And this is super impactful, especially if you're in a high stress job, or maybe you have to homeschool. I mean, that is hugely stressful, but even putting little calendar entries that repeat, that come out and allow you to just take a second for yourself to take a few deep breaths, super impactful. So in closing today, I want to leave you with this. You can't control what goes on outside, but you can control what goes on inside. And that's, both in here and also with your mind and also with your physical, actions and responses to things. So take time for yourself. Okay. Set an intention. Don't beat yourself up if it's not perfection, because that's not what health and wellness is about. It truly is, as cliche as it sounds, it truly is a journey, and just going at your own pace and staying consistent. So I leave you with that, my friends. And if you have any follow-up questions, even from today's discussion, I want to encourage you to just reach out for any questions, or perhaps if you want to work together in a one-on-one setting, I invite you to send me an email at andrea@nutritioncommission.org, or you can go to my website, which has just been revamped, and you'll be able to schedule a call with me to learn more. And I also have a lot of free resources in my website that I'm sure you'll enjoy. So until next time, friends, we'll talk in a month. Take care of you. And again, Happy New Year.